Right now we are in the midst of celebrations for Jaanipäev, St. John's Day, or the summer solstice. And I have another instrument project that's very fitting for this occasion. It's in this bag, this oblong bag, and take a look. Before I talk about this instrument or try to do anything to change it at all, just listen to this sound. Pretty magical, right? If you're familiar with the auto harp as an instrument, then what we have right here will probably seem pretty similar. In fact, we could think of it as an ancestor of the auto harp. This instrument in particular would be called a kannel in Estonian, and it has its equivalent in Latvia would be the kokle, and the kankles in Lithuania, and in Finland the kantele. And it is in English known as a Baltic Psaltery. This particular one was handmade. We're not quite sure by whom, but my wife Lonnie, after attending a recent workshop centered around learning how to play the Baltic Psaltery and about its history, put out a call. So this call was put out among the Estonian Canadian community, asking if anyone had a kannel in their possession that they would be interested in passing on if they weren't using it. And after that message went out, the response came in from a community member who had this kannel, this particular instrument here, in their closet. It hadn't been used for a long time, probably several decades. It's a special instrument here, and you can see a pretty interesting configuration for installing the strings. It appears they were using guitar strings and then looped them around the end like that and used some pegs. These pegs seem to be piano tuning pegs. I could be wrong, but they were installed on the edge here and inserted in the hole and looped around. There are 21 strings in total, and the ends are covered up by this piece of wood here and screwed in. At the back, we have an indication of what the tuning would have been for this particular kannel or psaltery, and that's pretty much the extent of what was known about this particular instrument. And so we brought it home. Came in its orange oblong custom case. It fits perfectly, but we needed to restring this instrument because the quality of the strings now, it's less than ideal. Some of the string material is frayed, and we wanted to give it a fresh sound. So I've never strung an instrument with 21 strings ever before, so I approached it as a complete amateur. That being said, I went to the local music store, Long and McQuaid, and the employee, staff member there was very helpful in measuring the gauge of each of these strings and determining which sizes of strings were used, and came up with this list here that I then used as a reference point for choosing guitar strings that would replace what's here. And thankfully, guitar strings in this particular store are not only sold in sets, but as singles, which is very useful. Even as a guitar player, I find it super useful because often it's just the top string that breaks after playing with a lot of intensity. Yeah, so I got 21 strings, including a pack of bass strings to replicate what was done here on the lower end of the kannel. I'm pretty certain that the most difficult strings to replace on this kannel or psaltery will be the low strings, the bass strings, because at the end, at the point in which they are looped and tied to these little pegs or little posts at the very end, the string itself, the metal, is unraveled slightly. So I will need to find some kind of tool in my toolbox to pull that wound string apart a little bit and then take it down to its core thread and then wrap it around and tie it tightly and securely to that post. I will use a drum key. This is seems to be coming in handy a lot these days. I will use that to loosen the other end of this whole tuning and string apparatus. I learned an important lesson on the very first string, which was a test of one's wits and strength in every sense. So basically, you need to create a loop at the very end first by using what Lonnie actually referred to as a jewelry technique. So we took the wire, we held it there, and then pulled it tight and took one side of the string over the other and pulled it together very tight so it holds, makes a little bit of a knot against that end post. From there, either with someone else's help or you have maybe a third hand or something like that, then you can hold that post down so that the first knot you created doesn't slip away, and then loop one side of the string over the other again and again, almost as if you're braiding hair. And you do that a few times and make sure it's extra tight, and then you can take the other side of the string that you're using and bring it to this post here. Put it through the hole and tighten it with the key. It's pretty helpful when you're doing the initial part of that string replacement to put it in between your knees like this so that you can pull it tight like that and loop and loop and loop and so on, and then trim the wires after everything is set up and sufficiently tight. Obviously some tuning needs to be done after all of this is complete, but we'll see how closely we can replicate the tuning that is written on this piece of tape that was on the side of the kannel. With the new strings installed, let's try going from the very lowest note to the very highest, the lowest being D. Let's try out some chords.